Part 60. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzwan Xianxia. Chapter 591. In Beiwa City, a group of Danja guards searched the entire Xianxia pavilion, but found nothing. Except for the dying shopkeeper Xianxia. Tell me what happened. A monk with a square face, who was not angry and proud, shouted in a low voice to the shopkeeper Xianxia. City lord. Shopkeeper Xianxia couldn't get up at all. His spiritual power was surging all over his body, and he was taking in less air and outgoing more. If the lord of Beiwa City hadn't given him a pill just now to hang on to his life, I'm afraid he would have died by now. It's the fire dragon Sex, Zhong Jingguo's disciple, who suddenly took action against the young one. The city lord's face condensed and he said, a disciple of Zhong Jingguo. As far as he knew, Zhong Jingguo did not accept any disciples. The only people who practiced with him were a pair of children. Yes, city lord, the female cultivator said, he is a direct disciple of Zhong Jingguo. Female nun. The city lord's eyes flashed, and he said solemnly, did you read that correctly? City lord, little one, I'm sure of it. Very good, the city lord nodded and said, you did a good job, have a good rest. After that, he raised his hand, and the Xianxia shopkeeper immediately shattered into pieces and turned into a ball of blood mist. Around him, several nascent soul stages were trembling in silence, not daring to say a word. Humph, Zhong Jingguo's daughter is nothing. If you can take her down without anyone noticing, it will be considered a great achievement. But if you lose the fox girl, it will be a death penalty. The city lord raised his head, glanced at the group of nascent souls in front of him, and said, Wen Changxiao, I leave this matter to you to investigate. If the incident involving Zhong Jingguo's daughter happens, I'm afraid it will attract Zhong Jingguo's revenge. Can you do it in our Beiwa city? I will not believe it if there is no one to help me escape from being intercepted by many people in the Danjing period. Find the relevant people and kill them without mercy. Yes, city lord, my subordinates will do it immediately. A nascent soul cultivator who was named stood up. No matter how reluctant he was, he could only do as he was told. Everyone present knows the temper of the city lord. If they dare not obey, the death of shopkeeper Xianxia will be their fate. You guys are such idiots. The city lord left a message to the rest of the nascent soul stage, and left the place in a flash. Everyone looked at each other in shock, not daring to speak out, and only communicated their dissatisfaction with their eyes. But that's all. No one knows the strength of the city lord better than them. City lord's mansion. In the magnificent palace, the city lord was half lying on a gold-plated chair. Beside him, a female cultivator who was as beautiful as a fairy, with a charming look in her every move, came forward with a smile and a tray in her hands. In the tray is a bunch of aura-like purple grapes. City lord, what makes you so angry? You are very angry, but it will affect your Taoist heart. The woman bit off a grape with her mouth. The delicate red lips and the deep purple formed a wonderful contrast. She brought it to the city lord's mouth. It wasn't until the city lord swallowed all the grapes in his mouth that she giggled and said, City lord, have you sent down the fire? This slave used the ice from the northern land to freeze these. The city lord swallowed it whole, showed a strange smile, and then pulled the female cultivator into his arms. Only you can reduce the anger of the city lord. The ice in the north. Ah, city lord, please be gentle. The female cultivator moaned sweetly, and several white foxtails were exposed behind her. Xianxia Pavilion, Wenchen Xiao found a name in the account book registered. Feng Qingyang. He murmured, this is the young master of the sword refining section. He lives in room number 13 in Tianzi. However, just now, his subordinates came to report that he was not in Tianzi room. Lord Wen, I heard that Feng Qinjiang's dragon has disappeared, maybe it really is him. In front of him, a pill-forming monk said seriously. Oh? Tell me, what do you know? Wen Xiao's eyes lit up. Feng Qingyang naturally knew that the sword refining sect was famous for sword refining. Even his top-grade magic sword was bought from the sword refining sect 300 years ago. It was made by the current master of the sword refining sect himself. Sir, I once had a drink with Feng Qingyang. He was extremely lustful and said that he was not interested in refining magic swords. In his lifetime, he just hopes to see all the beauties in the mortal world. At that time, the little one scoffed, but Feng Qingyang was even more disdainful. He said that he had a magic weapon that would come and go without a trace. As long as he didn't want others to see it, no one would be able to see him. Wen Xiao's eyes lit up, he patted the table and stood up, saying, "Let's go to Huaiden Valley." Everyone rushed out of Tianxiang Pavilion with him, and saw him throwing a flying boat from his sleeves, and all the monks in the Danja stage jumped on it. Wen Xiao's flying boat was also built by the Fire Dragon section. It was expensive, but its speed was also strange, no slower than the flight in the nascent soul stage. Let's go. More than 1,000 miles, right? 2 hours at most. Wenqin Xiaoji took off his boat, turned into a streak of fire, and disappeared into the night sky. Zuyun and the others had no idea that they had been discovered. Feng Qingyang, how long will it take? Zuyun, who was flying with the fox girl in his arms, felt very awkward. But the one who was more awkward than him was Feng Qingyang. Several hours passed, and Xianxia had already refined all the fire dragon pills. But he had no intention of getting up from Feng Qingyang's arms. She has not fully recovered, so she can save some spiritual energy. Although Feng Qingyang gave her a very bad impression, Xianxia didn't care about these trivial matters at all. In her original plan, she just wanted to stay in Huaiden Valley for a while and wait for the secret realm of the heavenly book to open before leaving. Come on, it's only 200 miles away. Feng Qingyang curled his lips and said, "Good brother, are you tired? If you are tired, just take the shuttle is fast." Zuyun rolled his eyes and said, "Then why did you just let us get off the shuttle?" This. Feng Qingyang said helplessly, "The flying shuttle consumes too much spiritual power, and I am poor and don't have many spiritual stones." Zuyun suddenly realized that he was asking for spiritual stones from himself. He was also a little tired from flying, not because of the consumption of spiritual power, but because his heart was very tired. Although the fox girl was motionless in his arms, there was a natural body fragrance that constantly filled his nostrils, which he was not used to. It can even be said that it is a bit painful. Problems that can be solved with spiritual stones are never problems. Zuyun said something disgusting, took out a handful of spirit stones and threw them over. "Take it, get on the shuttle quickly." "Good class." Feng Qingyang opened his eyes when he saw Qian. When he took the spirit stone, he silently recited a few mantras, and the shuttle immediately flew to Zuyun's feet. "Hey, where's the door-to-door service?" Zuyun was stunned for a moment, then sarcastically said, "Hey, good brother, you are the sponsor, so our service must be in place." After seeing Zuyun standing on the shuttle, Feng Qingyang followed. With the spiritual stone as the driving force and no need to hide their breath and voice, Feng Qingyang used all his spiritual power on speed. "Call out." The sound of breaking through the sky sounded, and the shuttle also drew a line of light and shadow in the night. After almost an hour, they had already flown out of this plane and rushed into an endless lake. This is. From such a condescending position, he was unable to see the entire lake clearly, and Zuyun was secretly frightened. "Hey, this is Pipa Lake. There is a small island in the lake, which is Pipa Prefecture. Our Huaiden Valley is in the center of Pipa Prefecture." There was a hint of pride in Feng Qingyang's explanation. Zuyun raised his eyebrows, wondering what Feng Qingyang meant. Before he could speak, he saw the shuttle falling rapidly, and a small island came into view. The shuttle did not land, but rushed towards the island. Zuyun could already see a towering mountain peak directly in front of him. "Good brother, our Huaytan Valley is among the mountains. Just sit tight and don't make a fuss later." The speed of the shuttle remained the same, heading straight towards the mountain peak. Zuyun's expression changed so quickly. Wasn't this going to turn into meat? Just when he was about to stop Feng Qingyang, the shuttle took 4 people and went straight into the mountain peak. Phantom. Zuyun was stunned for a moment, and his eyes suddenly became enlightened. Rows of houses are in full view, and the surroundings are extremely bright. Wrong. Zuyun's eyes suddenly widened and he used the void-breaking spiritual eye technique. "It's obviously nighttime, why is it so bright here?" "Good brother, we're here." Before Zuyun could find any clues, Feng Qingyang suddenly stopped the shuttle, then hugged Xianxia and stepped onto the solid ground. "The shuttle has landed." Zuyun looked around and saw towering cliffs. The cliff is covered with flowers. The light in the valley is emitted by these flowers. "Welcome to Huaytan Valley." Feng Qingyang suddenly shouted, which made Zuyun suddenly come back to his senses. He looked towards Feng Qingyang and saw that Xianxia had broken free from his arms and was standing quietly on one side. But Feng Qingyang suddenly ran towards a row of houses in the middle, shouting as he ran, "Dad, I'm back." Hearing this, Zuyun suddenly locked his eyes on Feng Qingyang's back. "I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills." Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 592. I didn't expect that I would end up in Huaytan Valley by accident. Xianxia suddenly spoke up, interrupting Zuyun's thoughts. "Haha, yes, miss." Zuyun immediately came back to her senses. Since Xianxia was safe, she could still be used. Zuyun naturally didn't want to break up with her. Whether it was used in the secret realm of the heavenly book or to test Feng Qingyang, only Xianxia could do it. "By the way, what's your name?" "Fortunately, you saved me, otherwise I don't know what would happen to me in Tianxiang Pavilion." Xianxia thought a lot along the way. She was wary of Feng Qingyang, but not Zuyun. Everything has a motive, but Zuyun risked his life to save her, which made Xianxia think that he really wanted to return to the Fire Dragon sect. Or, his motive was to curry favor with her. In this way, he could be used. Both of them had their own ulterior motives, and their goals were surprisingly consistent. Zuyun laughed and said, "Miss, my name is Huo Beishi." In a hurry, Zuyun took the opportunity to put the fox girl aside and thought of using the big dog's name. Huo Beishi. Xianxia searched carefully in her mind and had no impression of this name at all. But she never cared much about the Fire Dragon sect, so she didn't care too much. "I remember your name. When you return to the Fire Dragon sect, you can tell me my name. Now, we have to stay here for a while. I think Feng Qingyang may have some plans. You should be careful, remember." Yes, miss, I remember it." Zuyun was timid. No matter how he communicated with Feng Qingyang, he must show loyalty in front of Xianxia. This was not a difficult task for Zuyun. "Miss, how are you injured?" Zuyun suddenly asked. "It's nothing serious, just the spiritual power is exhausted. I took a fire dragon pill and I'm much better." Xianxia said, and thought of Zuyun's folding fan again, and said, "By the way, can you show me your fan?" Zuyun took out the folding fan without hesitation and handed it over. This fan was obtained from the Naihuo city lord in Chuzhu. He didn't know where it came from. But he knew that this fan was similar to Zhongjiangjiao's life weapon, maybe. It might also be produced by the Fire Dragon sect. While thinking so in his heart, he heard Xianxia say, There are other magic weapons in the sect, but you chose this defective folding fan. Is this a defective product? Zhu Yun's heart tightened, thinking that this is indeed a product of the Fire Dragon sect. I don't know why it flowed into the hands of the Naihuo city lord. Unfortunately, he is dead. Of course, I think it must be that an elder was not satisfied with the refining, so he threw it into the sect treasury, and then you exchanged it for your contribution, right? Xianxia did not doubt it at all, but was more certain that Zhu Yun was a disciple of the Fire Dragon sect. Throwing the folding fan back to Zhu Yun, he said, the sword refining sect also has ground vein fire. If there is a chance, I will help you to refine it again, and it will be more or less stronger. Can it be stronger? Zhu Yun was suspicious. The folding fan fell into his hands a lot with his refining attainments, he did not see any problems. Could it be that Xianxia's refining skills would be better than his? Zhu Yun obviously did not believe it. But at the moment, he could only show a look of joy to Xianxia. Thank you, miss. It doesn't matter. Your strength has increased, which is good for both me and you. Let's wait until Feng Qingyang comes back. By the way, ask if you can borrow their ground vein fire. Xianxia was not kind. But she wanted to recover as quickly as possible, so she could only use the earth vein fire to absorb fire power from it. Tempering the folding fan was fake, but cultivation was real. She could even use this to test Feng Qingyang's attitude. She said she came to Huaitan Valley before, but she actually wanted to stay outside the mountain. But Feng Qingyang took them directly into the heart of the valley. This surprised Xianxia. As the saying goes, if you come here, make the best of it. She might as well explore the real situation here. If she could deal with Feng Qingyang, she might be able to stay here safely until the secret realm of the heavenly book is opened. Then I'll go and ask. Zhu Yun's eyes lit up. He was worried that if Xianxia pulled him to talk, he would not be able to go over. This just happened to have a reason. Then you go and come back quickly, I'll take a walk in this valley. Yes, miss. Zhu Yun immediately ran towards the house where Feng Qingyang had entered before. The wooden house was very simple, and there was nothing special about it except ordinary living utensils. Zhu Yun stared at Feng Qingyang in a daze. He knelt on the ground and cried bitterly in front of a portrait in the main room. Dad, why haven't you come back yet? Zhu Yun was completely confused. He thought that Feng Qingyang had run back so frantically before, and thought he had found his father back. In the end, there was nothing. The key point is that the way he was worshipping the portrait at this time seemed to be keeping vigil. Zhu Yun's brain twitched, and he couldn't help but say, my condolences. Feng Qingyang suddenly widened his eyes, turned his head and stared at Zhu Yun and said, good brother, my father is not dead. Zhu Yun thought to himself, I also wish your father is not dead, otherwise, how can I find out why there are fragments in this broken sword? But, if your father is not dead, then you are worshipping the portrait here. Yes, I misunderstood. Zhu Yun said helplessly, then changed the subject and said, Feng Qingyang, where has your father gone? Just now you were so surprised, I thought your father was back. And then I saw you crying here. Hey, who's crying? Feng Qingyang unabashedly wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes, and said harshly, when I pushed the door in, there was too much dust in this room, and I let the dust get into my eyes. I am the dream of millions of girls in the Feng world. How could you cry? Zhu Yun was speechless. When a person's face reaches a certain level, his Taoist heart must have reached a terrifying level. Good brother, actually I don't know where my father has gone. But, if you give me the broken sword, maybe I can find my father's location. Feng Qingyang became serious, which actually made Zhu Yun a little uncomfortable. And now, there's no doubt about it. The sloppy old man who refines the sword is Feng Qingyang's father. It's not impossible to give you the broken sword, but if you take the sword for your own use, and you run away on the shuttle, then I will have nowhere to redress your grievances. In fact, if he could find someone to refine the sword, Zuyun wouldn't care about the broken sword at all. If one of the fragments had not been taken out from here, Zuyun would not have even looked at this magical weapon. Good brother, if you can run away, a monk can't run away from the temple. You are already at my house. Are you worried about where I can run away? Seeing Feng Qingyang beating his chest loudly, Zuyun refused to give in and said, "Didn't you say that you want to travel all over the world and taste thousands of beauties in the world? It shows that you have not considered this place at all. Are you in charge? Besides, your Huatang doesn't look that good, so even if you give it to me, I won't be interested." Good brother, Huaytan Valley doesn't look good. But outside Huaytan Valley, a once-in-a-thousand-year prosperity is about to usher in. At that time, if you take out all the inventory in Huaytan Valley, there will definitely be monks who will take a fancy to it. At that time, didn't these huge amounts of spiritual stones flow into your pocket? Oh. Zuyun raised his eyebrows and said, "So you're already planning to run away?" Feng Qingyang, to tell you the truth, I don't lack spiritual stones, and I'm not interested in that Xianxia event either. He had already guessed what Feng Qingyang was talking about. It was launched every 1,000 years, and in Pipa State, besides the secret realm of the Book of Heaven, what else could there be? Only. He wanted to steal the door beads before, but it seemed that Feng Qingyang was pretending to be confused and thought he had deceived me. And he wants to break the sword. Is it possible that the broken sword is related to the secret realm of the Book of Heaven? Thinking of this, Zuyun couldn't help but cheer up. It seemed even more impossible to give the broken sword to Feng Qingyang. Good brother, good brother. Seeing Zuyun's lack of interest, Feng Qingyang became anxious and said, "How could I lie to you? As long as you give me the broken sword, I can swear the oath of heaven." Humph! Zuyun interrupted unceremoniously and said, "The monk swears that a sow in the mortal world can climb a tree. Feng Qingyang, if you want to break the sword, just give me what I want. Otherwise, I will never give it to you. Good brother, I'm begging you, okay?" Seeing Zuyun's determination, Feng Qingyang immediately begged, "This is news related to my father, otherwise, how about I trade the shuttle with you for the broken sword?" You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 593. When it comes to flying shuttles, Zuyun is quite excited. But then I thought about it, Feng Qingyang's silly look was probably just an act. He knows a truth. Sometimes what you see is just what others want you to see. Thinking of this, Zuyun neither refused nor agreed, but said, "Feng Qingyang, don't think of me as a fool. This shuttle is clearly your natal magical weapon. If you give it to me, you will always there is a way to take it back. Good brother, how could I, Feng Qingyang, be like this? I." He turned around and said to the portrait, "I swear to my father, this is my natal magic weapon, which is good, but I can completely disconnect it and let's barter." Zuyun snorted coldly, "The soul of the magic weapon is connected. If you are disconnected, you will probably be seriously injured, right? Aren't you afraid that I will run away after taking the shuttle and you will be unable to chase me?" Feng Qingyang didn't expect that Zuyun would look at the problem so rationally, and even said the negative side of him from his perspective, and he suddenly choked on his words. But Zuyun did not continue talking. It would not be good for him to break up at this time. Let's not talk about the broken sword and flying shuttle for now. Since you are the young master of the sword refining sect, do you think there is a place where you can refine swords? Just in time, I want to temper this folding fan again and borrow your earth vein fire. How? At this time, Feng Qingyang asked Zuyun for something. Even though he felt a little unhappy, he had no choice but to agree. These are all trivial matters, good brother, you have to believe me, Feng Qingyang snored. Zuyun was non-committal, turned around and walked towards the door before saying, I'm going to find my eldest lady, but having said that, if you are greedy for her body, you can figure it out on your own, and I won't be involved. Also, don't fight the fox either. It's a woman's idea. If the fox girl loses a hair in Huaytan Valley, don't blame me for being rude and ruining your Huaytan Valley. Feng Qingyang nodded repeatedly, and after watching Zuyun leave, his eyes shone brightly, and he said disdainfully in his heart, huh, how can a mere middle-stage pill-forming person have such a big tone? If it weren't for the female cultivator's entry beads, how could I have done it? Are you so humble? Also, why did my father's sword break? I heard my father talking to someone before, saying that there was a treasure hidden in the sword. The sword is broken now, and it seems that the treasure is on that kid. Wouldn't he agree if I exchanged the shuttle with him? Feng Qingyang secretly scolded Zuyun for being too cautious, but there was nothing he could do. Who allowed Zuyun to take the initiative and let him lead the way? Not long after, Zuyun returned with Xianxia. Miss, Feng Qingyang agreed, please excuse me. He took out the folding fan and handed it to Xianxia, then stepped back. Hey, fairy, don't look at me like this, it makes me blush. Feng Qingyang lowered his head and said heehily. Zuyun turned his back and almost stumbled. When it comes to pretending, it must be Feng Qingyang. Compared with him, my moral skills are even shallower. Thanks to fellow Taoist Feng for taking care of me all the way, Xianxia would like to express my thanks in advance. Xianxia was not an energy-saving lamp either. She held a folding fan in her hand and smiled slightly at Feng Qingyang. Ah, no, no need. When he first saw Fairy Zhong, Feng was shocked. He can't lose it in Beiwa City. It should, it should. Does Fairy want to temper this folding fan? Please follow me. Bring it on. After saying that, Feng Qingyang led the way out of the house and walked towards an inconspicuous small cave under the cliff. Zuyun watched them leave, unable to hear clearly what they were saying, but he could see they were talking and laughing, which made him even more convinced that Feng Qingyang was hiding a lot. I just don't know which one of these two has better acting skills. After seeing them enter the cave, Zuyun returned to the place where the shuttle landed. But just when she stood still, she saw the fox girl suddenly opened her eyes, with a look of gratitude. Xiuzhen thanks you for saving your life. It seemed that she wanted to get up and salute Zuyun. Zuyun quickly stopped and said, there is no need for this, I have a destiny to save you. Qiuqi and I are good friends, and I promised her that when we see the demon fox clan in Peeper Realm, we will definitely save her. Xiaoqi? Master, are you Xiaoqi's friend? Qiuzhen's beautiful eyes exuded an incredible look. Yes, I met her by chance in Shiwanda Mountain, and we were friends of life and death. Later, by chance, we met again in Peeper Realm. But her strength was low, so I asked her to go home. But I never thought that she would not. I will only go back if I promise her that I must save your tribe. When Zuyun thought of Qiuqi, he sighed slightly. Compared with the internal fighting and plotting against each other among the human race, sometimes the monster beasts of the same race were very united, which made him extremely ashamed. What is this? Are you worse than a beast? Sir, you must be the benefactor of our demon fox clan. My slave was also caught by other demon clan in the mountains, and was finally sold to Beiwa City. In these years, my slave has been humiliated, and not only was she fed inexplicable elixirs, the body is even more uncontrollable. If you don't mind me, 11 Wan kindly asks me to take you in and be your foot-warming girl. The power of Xianxia and Kanjak in Qiu Ziwen's bones has not completely dissipated. These words are somewhat charming. If Zhu Yun hadn't been very determined, he might have agreed immediately after hearing these words. This. As soon as a word came out of his mouth, he felt a thrill in his heart. It was indeed inconvenient to have Qiu Ziwen by his side. But on the other hand, does this mean that she is willing to recognize herself as Lord? It would be easier if that were the case. Anyway, the pasture also has special effects. If you want to let her leave, you can do it at any time. It has been verified from the ancestral tree that there will be no negative effects. Thinking of this, Zhu Yun immediately said, "There is no need to serve tea and water, but I will definitely escort you back to Shiwanda Mountain. However, I still have things to do now, and I don't know when I will go back." "Master!" Qiu Ziwen shouted sweetly and said, "Ziwen has been forced to humiliate him for several years, and he has long since returned to the mountain without shame. I hope you will not send Ziwen back." As she said that, she shed 2 lines of tears. Zhu Yun was speechless for a long time, but he did not struggle for a long time in his heart. Instead, he said, "Let's talk about this later. It just so happens that I also saved one of your compatriots before. Take a look, do you recognize him?" After that, he took out a beast-taming bag from the ring, which was the demon fox rescued from the pet pavilion in the market near the fire dragon sect. With a thought in his mind, the demon fox in the bag was released out of range. Pure white light flashed, and a 3-tailed demon fox fell to the ground on all fours and stood in front of Qiu Ziwen. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The demon fox shouted excitedly at Qiu Ziwen. It was obvious that he knew him and had a very close relationship with him. "Little sister, it's you." Qiu Ziwen didn't know where the power came from, and a demonic force appeared out of thin air and wrapped around her. In just the blink of an eye, she transformed back into the demon fox and hugged the demon fox who had just come out of the beast-controlling bag. After the 2 demon foxes transformed into their true bodies, they naturally communicated in the language of the fox tribe. Zhu Yun didn't understand it at all, but he could see their excitement from their expressions and actions. After a while, the 2 demon foxes stood side by side and bowed to Zhu Yun. Zhu Yun smiled and said, "So she is your little sister? I have never had the opportunity to release her and ask her before. Now I take this opportunity to tell you something. Ziwen, if you accept me as your master, it can be solved. The problem of not being able to put it into the beast control bag." Qiu Ziwen couldn't speak at this time, so he nodded repeatedly to express his willingness to accept Zhu Yun as his master, then turned his head and called to his side. I don't know what they said before, but this demon fox only hesitated for a moment and nodded firmly. "Good." Zhu Yun smiled knowingly and said, "In that case, I will send you to a good place, which is much better than the beast control bag. The key is that it will be much easier for me to do things in the future. If I have the opportunity, I can go and see you talk." After the words fell, Zhu Yun's smile had not yet disappeared, and countless breaths fell from the sky. Even among them, there is an aura of nascent soul stage that is particularly obvious, like standing out from the crowd. Zhu Yun was horrified and looked up at the mountain pass in the sky, just when the nascent soul stage burst out laughing. "Ha ha ha, I didn't expect that this demon fox is actually here. And there are 2 more. The person coming is none other than Xianxia." The overwhelming pressure quickly surged towards Zhu Yun. "I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills." Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 594. Zhu Yun's expression changed drastically. He didn't have time to think too much and immediately took the 2 demon foxes into the Xianfu ranch. Xiao's eyebrows shrank, then he laughed wildly and said, "No wonder I couldn't find the aura of the demon fox. It turns out that this boy has a magic weapon to store the beast. Boy, are you from the demon control holy sect?" Although he was asking questions, Wen Xianxia didn't hold back any force. Just when he thought his pressure could completely envelope Zhu Yunzi, he didn't expect that the place where his eyes were locked suddenly became empty. This is Zhu Yun using the thunder escape technique. Having fought against Yuanying countless times, Zhu Yun is very aware of the terror of Yuanying monks. If he is enveloped by coercion, he will be unable to move even an inch. What he didn't expect was that Beiwa City not only responded so quickly, but also locked their position. What went wrong? Zhu Yun's figure appeared from 200 steps away, and before he had time to think, he used the thunder escape technique again. But Huaitan Valley is surrounded by mountains. He has no shuttle and cannot escape from the cliff. If he uses the earth escape technique, he may not be able to escape Wen Xiao's spiritual sense. Among the 5-element escape techniques, only the earth escape technique was the least useful to Zhu Yun. After all, the fire escape technique can escape into the fire and merge with the flames. Most people will not notice it at all. With the wood escape technique, you can escape into a tree without anyone noticing. As for the water escape technique, as long as the water is deep and wide enough, it can go anywhere like a fish without leaving any trace. As for the golden escape technique, although there is no advantage in turning into a metal spirit body, it can communicate with all things, which is of great significance. But the earth escape technique, even if it is hidden in the soil, will leave traces in the soil as soon as it is moved, making it easy to be discovered. If you want to get out, you can only go to the sky. But at this time, a group of Danja people were guarding the mountain pass, and only Wen Xianxia was chasing him. Zhu Yun has nowhere to go. No, it's not an option to continue like this. He couldn't help but feel anxious. Due to the limited range, his advantages simply cannot be used. He could only keep using the thunder escape technique, evading Wen Xiao's spiritual lock again and again. But Huaitan Valley is only such a big place, so Wen Xiao simply covered the entire valley with his spiritual consciousness. No matter where Zhu Yongkang escaped, he would be discovered when he showed up. But fortunately, Wen Xiao needs to mobilize all his spiritual consciousness to make everything go smoothly, and there is still a time lag. Zhu Yun also had the opportunity to use the thunder escape technique one after another. But this is not a long-term solution. If he doesn't come up with a solution, he will be locked under pressure if he is not careful for a long time. When the time comes, everyone will be a swordsman and he will be a fish. Boy, this escape technique is pretty good. But let's see how long you can last. Wen Xiao's eyes shone, and it was a great achievement to find the demon fox. If he could bring 2 of them back to life, it wouldn't be as simple as getting promoted and making a fortune. Those pill-forming periods above were also extremely exciting. They only need to guard the mountain pass and do not need to contribute at all. This kid really has some skills, no wonder he can escape from Beiwa City. Yes, I have been guarding Beiwa City for so many years, and this is the first time I have encountered such a thing. The Peeper realm is so big, there are naturally a lot of capable people and strangers. When Wenching guards captures this kid, we will go and ask him to see if we can learn this escape technique. Yes, but this kid, is he Feng Qingyang? As he said that, all the people in the Dan formation period looked at the person in the middle. He was the person who had had a drink with Feng Qingyang face to face. He is not Feng Qingyang, but he is definitely related to Feng Qingyang. As far as I know, Feng Qingyang uses wind spirit power, but this kid underneath has a faint thunder spirit power in his escape technique. It's hard to say another monk with mutated spiritual roots. Hearing about the mutated spiritual roots, the eyes of all the people in the alchemy stage couldn't help but have a look of envy in their eyes. Mutated spiritual roots are extremely rare even in the Peeper realm. Whether he is or not, Wenching Xiao is in the middle stage of nascent soul, he is only in the middle stage of Dan formation. If Wenching Xiao hadn't wanted to capture him alive in order to get the magic weapon to store the monsters, this kid would have died 100 times. Not anymore. These people talked unscrupulously and did not take Zuyun seriously at all, but they did not expect that these words were a reminder to Zuyun. I want a magic weapon. His eyes lit up and he immediately thought of a countermeasure. These periods of pill formation are nothing to worry about for him. As long as you show that you have the ability to injure Xianxia, you can make them throw a rat weapon. The best thing is to be able to hurt Xianxia. But his own methods basically only work by sneak attacks. Whether it's the Chaos Palm, the Wuji sword technique, or the Fire Phoenix talisman. If you don't enter the tiger's den, you won't catch the tiger's cubs. Zuyun's heart changed, and he sought wealth in danger. Since he didn't want me to die, wouldn't it be my chance? While he was dodging, he penetrated his spiritual consciousness into the ring. But in the ring, apart from the fire dragon staff, there was only the broken sword. If you want to randomly pick up a magic weapon and disguise it, there is no suitable one. No, I'm not familiar with the fire dragon staff yet. Although it's powerful, I can't guarantee whether it can hurt this nascent soul. Moreover, the fire dragon has become a weapon spirit and has to fight against the earth fire. Do you want to use this broken sword? But this sword is too ordinary. Wait a minute, that sword hilt seems okay. Zuyun's eyes suddenly lit up. When the fragments were fused with Zuyun's Dao glass mirror, they were severed from it and the hilt of the sword was also damaged. But if you hold the sword hilt backwards and expose the round end, you may not be able to deceive him. He only needs one breath, which is enough for him to take action unexpectedly. Thinking like this, Zuyun never stopped his escape technique, his figure kept flashing back and forth, and Zuyun also shouted, "Senior, please forgive me, I am willing to take out the magic weapon containing the 2 demon foxes and offer it to you." Every time he shouted 3 or 4 words, Zuyun's figure would appear from another place. But this did not prevent Xianxia from listening to the entire sentence. Seeing Zuyun's intention to surrender, he grinned, "Boy, you are still on the right track. In this way, I will take back my spiritual consciousness and you will no longer escape." How about it? He didn't believe Zuyun's words. However, in this Huayden Valley, there is only one way out. Even if he can take advantage of the opportunity to escape, how can he escape from the dragnet formed by his men above his head? "Senior, as long as you take back your spiritual consciousness, I will definitely do it." It took Zuyun 5 more thunder escape techniques to finish the sentence. "Ha ha ha, I, the great ancestor of Yuanying, am the guardian of a city, and I don't even bother to bully you, who is in the middle stage of forming the core." Xianxia was also straightforward, kept his word, and immediately put away his spiritual consciousness. Zuyun felt that the pressure suddenly disappeared, and when he appeared again, he happened to be 200 steps away from Xianxia. He was breathing slightly in his chest, but his eyes were looking at Xianxia warily. "Boy, bring me the magic weapon, so you still have a chance to live." Xianxia looked at Zuyun as if he were looking at an ant. Zuyun calmed his breathing, and then with a thought, he took out the hilt of the sword from the ring. His right fist tightly wrapped the broken position, revealing the intact side. "Senior, this is my magic weapon to store monsters." In order to win the trust of Xianxia, Zuyun pretended to be reluctant to give up. "Boy, you haven't answered whether I am a member of the Demon Control Holy Sect." When Xianxia saw that Zuyun was indeed no longer hiding, he was no longer anxious and asked aloud. Zuyun wished this was the case. He rolled his eyes and said, "Senior, the young one is a disciple of the Demon Control Sect." "I didn't expect that. I really guessed it right." Xianxia raised his eyebrows, unable to hide a hint of pride, and then said, "I heard that the Demon Control Holy Sect has been having a hard time recently, being beaten by the Fire Dragon Sect and locked down. But how could you get together with Zhong Jingguo's daughter again?" Originally, this kind of question was impossible to ask. Because the city lord warned him again and again. Even if Zhong Jingguo doesn't care about Zhong Yingxia's life or death, due to blood relationship, if she has any connection with Beiwa City, it will be Zhong Jingguo who loses his face. The city lord also knew this very well, and issued a death order when he was in Beiwa City. And when Xianxia didn't expect to let Zhu Yun live. It's just that I ask such a question at this time just to satisfy my curiosity. Not only is he going to die, Feng Qingyang is going to die too. The Valley Master of Weitan Valley, the master of the sword refining sect, is said to have gone crazy a long time ago and is missing. Feng Qingyang is nothing without a backer. Under such circumstances, Wen Chengxiao would be too proud, thus giving Zhu Yun the opportunity to fight back. Hearing Wen Chengxiao call out Zhong Yingxia's true identity, Zhu Yun secretly thought that Beiwa City was really powerful, and could actually do it in such detail. However, none of this matters anymore. The important thing is that he must kill Wen Chengxiao. He had already prepared his words, and did not respond directly to Wen Chengxiao's question. Instead, he put his hands on the hilt of the sword and said with great respect, "Senior, should I send this magical weapon to you, or should you come and get it? I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills." Author, Banzuan Shengxiao. Chapter 595. Humph, you are just an ant, are you worthy of letting Lord Wen pass? If Wen Chengxiao doesn't kill you, you should be grateful and kneel down to send him forward. Boy, I thought you had some brains and begging for mercy was the wisest decision. But I didn't expect you to ask such an irrelevant question. In the air, those Jindan cultivators listened to Zhu Yun making a choice for Wen Chengxiao and cursed. This was still polite. Many dirty words were even more unbearable to hear. Zhu Yun's forehead was throbbing with veins. It is said that in the world of immortal cultivation, the family will not be affected by disasters. This is also one of the reasons why many cultivators want to cut off their worldly ties, that is, they don't want to have grievances with other cultivators in the future and be exterminated. This is the consensus of the entire world of immortal cultivation. Even in the spiritual world, when cultivators of high realms compete with each other, they will automatically ignore the relatives of the other low-level cultivators. But at this time, these Jindan cultivators did not care at all, and all kinds of vicious words came out of their mouths. "Wait, I'll make you kneel down." Zhu Yun's heart was like an ice cellar, and the spiritual power of the chaos seed that kept surging began to slowly cool down. However, his attention was all on his face. Squeezing out a forced smile, Zhu Yun slowly flew towards Wen Chengxiao, while still holding the hilt of the sword with both hands and respectfully presenting it. "Senior, I brought it to you. I hope you will show mercy so that I can go back to the demon control section." "Ha ha ha, no problem, no problem. You are so sensible, I have no reason to bully you." Wen Chengxiao laughed until he saw Zhu Yun stop more than 10 steps in front of him. "Senior, please forgive me for not daring to approach." Zhu Yun did not wait for Wen Chengxiao to ask, but spoke first, catching Wen Chengxiao off guard. When he wanted to speak again, Zhu Yun interrupted him again. "Senior, please take it. I'll bring this magic weapon to you." After saying that, he exerted force with both hands and threw the hilt out. Wen Chengxiao couldn't stop laughing and reached out to take it. He had already thought about it. As long as the magic weapon was in hand, he would quickly use pressure to imprison Zhu Yun. In less than a blink of an eye, the hilt of the sword was already in Wen Chengxiao's hand. Suddenly, he was stunned. Then, his smile froze. No matter how stupid he was, he knew that Zhu Yun was playing tricks on him. So, he approached again, just to make a move. Wen Chengxiao felt a little incredible. How could a middle-stage Jindan have the courage to fight against me, who was in the Yuanying stage? These thoughts only occurred in a flash. But he didn't know that when Zhu Yun left the hilt of the sword, he had already brewed spiritual power and prepared the chaos palm. At this moment, an extremely huge spiritual power surged from in front of him. Chaos Palm. The palm power and Zhu Yun's roar came together. Feeling this palm that was no weaker than his own, Wen Qinshao's face changed drastically. In the air, all the Jindan stage opened their mouths wide, and their throats could not make a sound at all. They were shocked. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, how could they believe that a Jindan stage would actually exude the momentum of the Yuanying stage? Recalling their outspoken and vicious words just now, they couldn't help but tremble all over. Seeing that Wen Qingshan was flying backwards frantically and didn't dare to fight head-on, at this moment, they were finally a little scared. Zhu Yun only used 20% of his spiritual power in this palm. The momentum was strong, but the stamina was much worse. He hadn't used the Chaos Palm for a long time, and he actually forgot the shackles covering the outer skin of the Chaos Seed. Seeing that the Chaos Force with the power of destroying the world was about to catch up with Wen Qingshan and swallow him, it quickly weakened. Wen Qingshan was in the nascent soul stage, and his senses were so sharp that he immediately discovered that although the spiritual power chasing him was mysterious and pure, and he could not feel any attributes, he guessed that Zhu Yun was running out of energy, and it was time for him to fight back. He put away the spiritual power for escape, retreated by inertia, and raised his hand, and a metal lotus-shaped magic weapon with closed petals appeared. The spiritual power began to flow to the petals, and it actually exuded a strange fragrance. What's more amazing is that the petals continued to bloom, and the sharp metal edges glowed with cold light, which could shoot at Zhu Yun at any time. At the same time, a ferocious smile appeared on his face. "This kid, so dangerous, then I will use this angry lotus to shoot you into 1,000 holes." Wen Qingshan grasped the timing very well. Zhu Yun's chaotic power was dissipating, and he just kept the corresponding distance. Until all the chaotic power disappeared in front of him, Wen Qingshan also moved. "Boy, you are the first person in the Jindan stage in the entire Peepa realm to let me use my life magic weapon. If it were normal, this would definitely be a compliment of supreme honor." But at this moment, in his eyes, Zhu Yun was no different from a dead person. The voice kept echoing in the Huaitan Valley. The figure had already rushed in front of Zhu Yun. The blooming metal lotus petals, with a burning murderous intent, could fly out at any time to cut Zhu Yun into pieces. "You want to kill me, don't even think about it." Zhu Yun also roared, and saw one of the petals suddenly break away from the branch, turning into a pink and white light and shadow attacking. "So fast!" Zhu Yun shouted in his heart. His expression was not confused at all, and he even thrust his chest forward and took advantage of the situation to meet it. "Boy, do you want to die? Do you think that if you die, I can't get your magic weapon that hides the demon fox?" There was a hint of sarcasm in Wen Qingshan's eyes. From beginning to end, he was only afraid that Zhu Yun would destroy the magic weapon. In this way, the demon fox will also disappear with the beast control space, and it will appear again without a trace. But Zhu Yun's actions at this time made him relax a lot. "If that's the case, then die." "Ja." Wen Qingshan let out a strange laugh. His original intention was to use all the petals to remove Zhu Yun's limbs one after another, and then personally search for the magic weapon from him. Unexpectedly, Zhu Yun would take the initiative to die. "I thought this was a monk with some brains, but I didn't expect." Before he finished speaking, Wen Qingshan heard a golden roar. "Keng!" There was a crisp sound of metal collision. Zhu Yun was safe and sound, but a sharp pain suddenly appeared on his cheek. He subconsciously reached out and touched it. The wound was as thin as a hair, and the burning pain was very familiar to him. "It's the lotus petal of my own magic weapon. How is this possible?" Wen Qingshan roared in his heart, but suddenly, a shadow struck in front of his eyes. He raised his head suddenly, and the black shadow had already passed through his chest. Crack! The chaos sword passed through the body, passed through the sternum, and pierced the heart. The boundless pain was so intense that Wen Xianxia almost fainted. Before losing consciousness, he quickly poured all his soul power into his lower abdomen and concentrated it on nascent soul. Bang! The body split open, and a fist-sized nascent soul that was 89 similar to him suddenly jumped towards the sky. Want to run? Zuyun looked up, his eyes were cold. Not only must he die, but everyone who comes here must die. Otherwise, when the secret realm of the Book of Heaven is opened, there will be no way to live here. Just now, when life and death were at stake, he thought of the day-glazed mirror on his chest. I'm afraid that even Wen Xianxia didn't expect that Zuyun's body was actually embedded with a heart-protecting mirror. Still a fairy. Even if his furious lotus is exquisite and powerful, how can it break through the protection of the immortal weapon? Wishful thinking. The day-glazed mirror directly bounced off the lotus petal, injuring Wen Xianxia and causing him to lose consciousness for a moment. As for Zuyun, when the power of Chaos Palm began to decline, he was already at the end of his rope. He had no other option but the Chaos Sword. It just so happened that by coincidence, he found a good opportunity. The rebounding lotus petals caused Wen Xianxia to lose consciousness for a moment. He was already rushing towards Zuyun, and Zuyun didn't need to go up to him at all. He only needed to take out the Chaos Sword and let him go up to him when the opponent was approaching. It can be said that it was not Zuyun who stabbed Wen Xianxia with the Chaos Sword, but Wen Xianxia himself bumped into Zuyun's Chaos Sword. In mid-air, all the people in the Danja stage looked at the scene and did not come back to their senses at all. Originally, Zuyun's Chaos Palm made these people think it was Zuyun's desperate blow. Seeing that it lacked stamina, they all thought it was nothing more than that. But there are twists and turns. They couldn't figure it out why Wen Xianxia died by himself, crashed into Zuyun's inexplicable black sword, and then nascent soul escaped from his body. While they were in shock, Wen Xianxia's nascent soul had already passed through them and flew towards the mountain pass. The city guards are all running away, let's run. This kid is still very powerful. If he stays here, he is waiting to die. Go quickly, go quickly. However, the peak cultivators in the late stage of pill formation who are running amok in the Peeper realm are now just a bunch of people walking together in Xianxia. Before they could turn around, a fire dragon soared into the sky, passed through them, and headed straight for the nascent soul. Hold head high. The fire dragon let out a dragon roar, with the aura of a demon cultivator in the transformation stage, which scared these pill-forming stage demon cultivators to the point of not daring to move. Trembling, and even worse, his arms trembled, and he knelt down in mid-air uncontrollably. With low eyebrows, they saw Zuyun below, holding a staff, and the fire dragon emerged from the head of the staff. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 596. Zuyun didn't take these Jindan stage people seriously at all. As the saying goes, to catch a thief, first catch the leader. As long as the Yuanying of Wen Xianxia is killed, then these minions will naturally be nothing to worry about. Zuyun has many ways to deal with them, and there is no need to think too much. This is the first time he has used the fire dragon staff. 99% of the fire spiritual power infused in it comes from Zuyun's fire spirit pearl. But in order to avoid drawing too much fire spiritual power from it, thereby affecting the fire dragon's suppression of the earth fire, Zuyun still uses his spiritual power as much as possible. He is fully focused, and the breaking void spirit eyes Ju is locked on the Yuanying. No, no. Yuanying dodges around with its small body. But the mountain pass is so big, and wherever the fire dragon goes, the sea of fire also spreads. Where can he escape? Feeling the extremely terrifying fire power coming from behind, Wen Chengxiao didn't dare to stop at all. Indeed, his Yuanying retains his complete sanity, and the magical powers he has mastered have little effect. But in the end, the nascent soul has no power to defend itself. Facing the fire dragon, what is the difference between being powerless and being helpless? However, at this moment, several nascent souls suddenly woke up and saw Zhu Yun standing still. The fear in their eyes faded, and they revealed a cruel intention. One of them roared in a low voice, "This magic staff is a spiritual weapon. This kid has some difficulty using it, so he can't move. Everyone, follow me to rush down and kill him to save Wencheng. Go, go quickly." That's right, now he is fully focused on dealing with Wencheng. I'm afraid he has no spare energy to deal with us. Kill him and take away his spiritual weapon. All the nascent souls reached a consensus at this moment. They all sacrificed their own magic weapons and quickly rushed towards Zhu Yun, who was standing on the ground. But how could they know that the fire dragon staff was a spiritual weapon, and he only gave an order to the fire dragon, the weapon spirit. If you want to withdraw, you can do it at any time. His eyes turned cold. He didn't expect these Jindan stage people to be so ungrateful. I'll send you off sooner. Zhu Yun only had a thought, and countless monsters appeared beside him. The demonic energy was majestic, and each one was comparable to the Jindan stage. And the one closest to Zhu Yun was Zhao Kamang. He saw a small black whip in his huge demon claws. Roar! Seeing more than a dozen Jindan stage people falling from the sky, Zhao Kamang understood. After a loud roar, he swung the whip, and those monsters jumped up one after another and rushed towards the Jindan stage. No, this kid from the Yao Saint sect is weird. Feeling such demonic energy, these Jindan stage people almost thought they had fallen into the monster's lair, and they stopped in a hurry, and then fled to the sky again. But how could Zhao Kamang give them a chance? Zhu Yun was cold all over, holding a magic weapon with supreme firepower in his hand, and he knew that this was a fight to the death. Roar! He roared again, the sound was exactly the same as before, and some monsters that had not jumped up scattered and ran towards the cliff. These were all agile monsters. They had amazing demonic power. They stretched out their claws and climbed up the cliff like ghosts, as if walking on flat ground. Compared to the speed of these Jindan stage escape, it was no less than that. However, it was still a little slower after all. If these Jindan stage wanted to escape, I'm afraid more or less would escape, which was what Zhu Yun didn't want to see. He focused his eyes again, and then pinched out a handful of Jushin Leifu. Jushin Leifu has great lethality to monsters. He needs to stop the escape of the Jindan stage before these monsters climb to the mountain pass. Heavenly thunder, get up! Zhu Yun shouted, and dozens of Jushin Leifu were thrown out by him, instantly turning into ashes. Instead, the night sky, which was originally shrouded in the night, became even gloomier, and then there was a loud noise. Boom! 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 Below, there is a demonic aura that can calm the gods and capture the soul. Above, there is a thunder that can destroy the world. And Huayden Valley is another valley. There is no place to escape. They had no time to react. In the sky, countless thunder snakes passed through the black clouds and fell straight down. Fight the monsters! One of them made the most correct decision at this critical moment. He quickly rushed to the ground and faced one of the monsters. Some Jindan stage followed closely on his side and quickly caught up. But those who reacted slowly were hit by the thunder and fell directly to the ground, turning into a pool of charred meat. For these Jindan stage, there was no way to retreat at this time. There was no other way except to kill Zhu Yun. However, as soon as they fell, they were surrounded by countless monsters. It was simply wishful thinking to want to attack Zhu Yun. All this was thanks to Zhao Kamang's ability. Zhao Kamang's own strength is not strong, but he was originally the lord of the market, and he led many cultivators. Otherwise, How could he become the tyrant of the sea area in Yunzhou? It is true that he used to submit to Tang Zhuyang, but there is no difference between him and now recognizing Zhu Yun as his master. Now, he is even more convinced of Zhu Yun. When he encounters an enemy at this time, he should do his best. Roar! Zhao Kamang roared again, and the monsters fighting with the Jindan stage rushed towards these Jindan stage like they were desperate. Kill them. In the valley, spiritual power and monsters mixed together, and the air made bursts of explosions. But this situation could not last long, because the monster beasts who climbed up the cliff, seeing that there were no enemies in the air, actually jumped up, stretched out their bodies and fell from the sky, hitting the tops of these pill-forming stages. Suddenly, it was half of the pill-forming stage, and he was caught off guard by a sudden attack. In just a few breaths of time, there were only a few people left in the field, and they were immediately overwhelmed by all the monsters. Death is just a matter of time. Zhu Yun's face relaxed and he looked up into the air again. The heaven-gathering thunder talisman just now attracted thunder from the sky and blasted away the fire system caused by the fire dragon, giving Wenqin Xiao's nascent soul some breathing space. Zhu Yun was distracted for a moment, and the fire spirit power in his heart failed to keep up, allowing Wen Xianxia to find an opportunity to escape. But before he could take action, Zhu Yun targeted him again. Want to run away? What a whim! Zhu Yun soared into the sky, and as he waved his hand, a flame quickly emerged from his palm. Liwo curse! This man surnamed Wen has some tricks up his sleeve, and this fight is so fierce. Feng Qingyang and Zhong Yingxia may come out at any time. If they discover my strength, I'm afraid something will happen in the future, and I won't be able to pretend to be a pig and eat the tiger. I can only use Li only by cremating the dragon can you fish in troubled waters and burn his nascent soul. Zhu Yun's eyes were filled with hot fire, but he felt a little helpless in his heart. Fen Tianyan was thrown into the immortal mansion by him. Unlike monsters, he cannot summon Fen Tianyan directly. He can only help him by entering the immortal mansion and collecting it into the fire spirit orb. It seems that if nothing happens in the future, Fen Tianyan would be better off letting him stay in the fire spirit pearl. Especially after entering the secret realm of the heavenly book. Zhu Yun secretly made a decision in his heart, and at the same time, he saw the right opportunity and threw out the flame in his hand. Under his control, the 5 fire dragons quickly turned into the same shape as the fire dragon. After constantly intertwining and reciprocating, they separated. Although Wenqin Xiao was running away, his attention was always behind him. Originally there were only fire dragons, but now, there are 6 of them, and it's hard to tell the real ones from the fake ones. Zhu Yun's Liwo curse wanted to hurt him, but it was almost too hot, but how could he dare to test it with his own body? Suddenly, he was extremely anxious. Zhu Yun had already forced him to a dead end. Finally, after more than 10 breaths, the fire dragon burned nascent soul. Then, several other fire dragons also pounced. The 2 forces were actually from the same source. They burned Yuanying to death in an instant, without even letting him utter a scream. In the City of Flowers, the city lord who was having fun suddenly shook his body and pushed his maid away. Hey, city lord, your servants are almost dying of ecstasy. What's wrong with you? The maid fell down the steps from the front seat in an extremely inelegant posture, with 4 slightly water-stained foxtails scattered behind her. Wenqin Xiao, dead. What? The fox girl looked horrified. It has been decades since she was subdued by the city lord. Beiwa City has not experienced a single Dan formation stage, let alone a Wenqin guard in the nascent soul stage. As for the entire Peepa realm, one nascent soul stage death can basically shock one party. How could she not be surprised? How could the city lord not be angry? Xiao Wenqin is tracking down the whereabouts of the fox girl, but I don't know her whereabouts. The lord of Beiwa City turned to stare at the maid, with a stern face, showing no emotion at all, it seems that I have to let you find someone of your own clan. If I remember correctly, her name should be Chuzuan. The maid trembled, lowered her head, and said nothing. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzwan Xianxia. Chapter 597. You should know the meaning of your life. Seeing this, the city lord's tone became more ruthless, and the momentum of the peak of the late nascent soul stage was completely shrouded by the maid at this moment. City lord, calm down. I will take you to find it right away. A tragic look flashed across the maid's face, but when she raised her head, it had disappeared. Humph, you know what's good for you. The city lord's hand moved slightly, and the clothes he threw on the side flew onto his body one by one. In just a moment, he was dressed neatly. Why don't you return to your original form and go find Chuzuan? The city lord raised his eyebrows and didn't give the maid a chance to put on clothes. The maid smiled bitterly, and then a demonic aura emerged from her body. In the blink of an eye, she had turned into a four-tailed demon fox. Let's go. The city lord waved his hand, and the demon fox seemed to be lifted up by an invisible big hand. After only a few breaths, one person and one fox had appeared outside Beiwa City. It was teleportation. The most intuitive way to judge the strength of a Yuanying stage is to look at the distance of teleportation. Yao Wuxi, who is also at the peak of the late Yuanying stage, can teleport 300 steps. But the city lord's mansion is a full 1,000 steps away from the city wall, which shows how strong the city lord is. The fight in Huayden Valley has come to an end. In other words, it was not a one-sided massacre at the end. Zuyun was not injured at all. However, these monsters were injured, whether lightly or seriously. Zhao Kamang knew Zuyun's thoughts very well, so he ordered these monsters to fight with their lives before. Thank you for your hard work. Zuyun patted Zhao Kamang on the shoulder and said, after returning, tell them to take good care of their injuries. As long as they work hard, I, Zuyun, will never treat them unfairly. Roar. Zhao Kamang could not speak, and he roared to show that he understood. Then, he turned around and roared at the monsters behind him. This was his way of conveying Zuyun's meaning. Zuyun took all the monsters back to the Xianxia ranch. Looking at the monster blood and human blood flowing all over the ground, as well as some blood and meat, he couldn't help but feel a headache. No matter how powerful he is, he can wipe them all off. But the traces of the fight may not be so simple. Instead of dealing with this place, it's better to think of a lie. Zuyun patted his forehead lightly and looked up at the mountain pass. The sky was already slightly bright. However, the valley was still as bright as day, all of which were blooming with strange flowers on the cliffs. These flowers have no spiritual power at all, which is magical. Zuyun retracted his gaze, but he was still a little uneasy. After all, he killed a Yuanying stage. Beiwa City may not be so easy to deal with, right? After thinking about it, he made a decision in his heart and prepared to make a good arrangement in Huayden Valley. According to his experience, usually the younger ones are beaten and the older ones come. Although Wenqin Xiao is not small, he is just a city guard, and there is a city lord above him. There is no doubt that the city lord's strength must be at the peak of the late nascent soul stage. Feng Qingyang took Xianxia and walked in the dark mountain road. How long will it take? Xianxia was a little impatient. She could feel that the mountain road was slanting downward, and the further down, the stronger the fire power. Fairy, don't worry, it's almost there, it's almost there. Feng Qingyang responded absent-mindedly, which made Xianxia feel a nameless anger. If Zuyun was not of great use to her, she would never have taken the trouble to help him temper the folding fan. But Feng Qingyang said this several times. There was not even an oil lamp on this mountain road. She wanted to release her spiritual consciousness, but was subject to some restrictions. Under such circumstances, she was naturally very irritable. "You tell me how long it will take," Xianxia said, suppressing her anger. "Soon, soon, it will be here soon. The last time you said soon was half an hour ago." Xianxia retorted without any hesitation, but Feng Qingyang didn't seem to care about Xianxia's feelings at all, and continued, "This time it will really be here soon. Maybe the ground fire ran away because I was away these days." Xianxia suddenly widened her eyes and felt a little incredible. "Ran away?" "Yes, it ran away. This ground fire is a ghost. Every time I want to refine the sword, I have to spend a lot of effort to find it." Feng Qingyang complained for a while, but Xianxia didn't believe it at all, and sneered, "Feng Qingyang, don't lie to me. I am also a member of the Fire Dragon section. We also have ground fire in the Fire Dragon sect, but I have never heard of this." "Hey," Feng Qingyang waved his hand and said, "Fairy, the ground fire of your Fire Dragon sect is indeed good, but there are thousands of kinds of fire in the world, and it is not surprising that some can escape. Do you know why our Huayden Valley is surrounded by cliffs? In fact, this is a natural formation that has existed for countless thousands of years. According to the rumors left by our ancestors, this is to trap the ground fire and escape from Peepa state." Xianxia thought this was too mysterious and didn't believe it at all, saying, "Why don't you say that the water in Peepa Lake is also to block the ground fire? Fairy is really smart and powerful." Feng Qingyang clapped his hands and praised, "Indeed, the ancestors left a few words. One is not to destroy the cliffs, the second is not to drain the water of Peepa Lake, and the third is not to subdue the ground fire. Can the earth vein fire be taken away? With all due respect, even the weakest earth vein fire is naturally raised by the earth. Even if there is one that can be taken away, it is not something that we monks in the mortal world can do." Xianxia still didn't believe it. "Fairy, the world is so big and full of wonders. The way of heaven is something we can't explore. Although we are all cultivating immortals, what we have seen and heard is only the tip of the iceberg. There are many things you don't know, and there are many things I don't know. There are too many earthline fires that can escape and be subdued. What's so strange about them? Hearing what you said, I would like to see the escaping earth vein fire. What's so magical about it?" Xianxia retained her skepticism, but the anger she had accumulated suddenly disappeared without a trace. "After I stopped being impatient, time seemed to move much faster. It didn't feel like it took long. The slope of the mountain road gradually became gentler, and it became much wider, and the previous depressing feeling in the darkness was gone. The most important thing is that the fire spiritual power in the air has become particularly active at this time. Arrive." While Xianxia was still carefully feeling how the fire power here was different from that of the Fire Dragon sect, Feng Qingyang suddenly stopped. "Arrive." Xianxia almost bumped into Feng Qingyang's back, stopped and asked, "Well, here we are. This guy ran away again. I have to go down to find it." "Fairy, wait for a moment, I will catch it later." After that, Feng Qingyang took out the shuttle and stepped on it, then rushed down the mountain road. After a while, there was no sound again, leaving Xianxia alone in the darkness. After a long while, she suddenly came to her senses, stretched out her palm, and offered a flame. The mountain road became brighter, and Xianxia saw that the place dozens of steps in front of him was no longer a mountain road, but a bottomless abyss. On the stone wall of the abyss, there were traces of burns from magma. What Feng Qingyang said before could not help but come to her mind, and she couldn't help but secretly thought, can this earth vein fire really escape? Feng Qingyang rushed down from here, and she actually vaguely believed it. But on the other hand, how could he capture the earth vein fire? As time passed, a strong hot wind suddenly came from the abyss. Her eyes lit up, as if she wanted to see through the abyss. Did Feng Qingyang capture the earth vein fire? Is there really something so magical? She couldn't help but stretched her neck and looked down hard. If you can master Feng Qinjiang's skills, can you return to the Fire Dragon sect, capture the Fire Dragon sect's earth veins, and then use it for your own use? Thinking of this, she began to think about how to get Feng Qingyang to teach this method later. If that day comes, she will definitely take revenge for hurting herself while refining her clothes. Moreover, the Fire Dragon sect's earth vein fire is so powerful. After I control it, I'm afraid I won't be able to stay in this mortal world anymore, right? I thought for a long time. The wind became stronger and stronger, the temperature became higher and higher, and red light began to appear in the abyss. That must be the ley line fire. Xianxia looked at this incredible scene. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she would never believe it. It seems that Feng Qingyang does have some skills that I can use. But, what is his strength? Taking it by force is definitely not possible. Then there is only honey trap. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 598. In the valley. After Zuyun had made all the arrangements, it was already bright. The sun shone over the mountain pass and fell to the bottom of the valley. At this moment, all the flowers on the cliffs no longer shone. He sat casually on a stone and began to look around carefully. But even if he used the breaking void spirit eye technique, he did not find anything unusual at all. Are these flowers ordinary flowers? Zuyun was puzzled and looked up at the mountain pass. He didn't know where the idea came from, so he decided to fly to the mountain pass to take a look at the Baiwa Lake. He had followed Feng Qingyang all the way here before, and it was midnight. He just glanced at it and didn't look closely. The same is true for Pipazhou. It's just an island, but it has to be called a state. Who gave it this name? Zuyun curled his lips and flew into the air. A moment later, he was already standing on the top of the mountain pass. Looking down from a high place, the situation on the island was in full view. From a distance, there were actually many small boats floating on the lake. At the stern, there were still people rowing the boat. They were covered in the glow of the sunset, and they seemed to be humming a little tune, and their bodies swayed with the paddling. Mortal. Zuyun couldn't help but frown. This was the first time he saw a mortal in Pipa realm, but he didn't expect it to be in this situation. You know, the once a millennium heavenly book secret realm will be opened in Pipa state. Now it's only been more than 2 months. How could there be mortals rowing in the lake? This is too incredible. He was puzzled and kept staring at one of the small boats. After the mortal rowed for a while, he stopped, walked into the cabin, took out a fishing net, and then threw it into the lake. Then, he dragged the fishing net back, and the fresh fish immediately jumped in the net. This scene made Zuyun almost think that he had returned to Yunzhou and Huangshi Mountain. His childhood memories gradually overlapped with this scene. The only difference is that the villagers in Huangshi Mountain either picked herbs or hunted. But at this moment, he seemed to see the mortal's face showing joy because of his harvest. He looked around the entire lake, and wherever he looked, he saw the same scene. These fishing boats, each in a place, cast fishing nets and dragged them back to the boat. After looking around, he was surprised to find that these fishermen did not catch any nets. Wait. Suddenly, Zuyun found something wrong. In Lake Baiwa, he could feel spiritual power. In other words, this lake is a spiritual lake. Then the creatures living in the spiritual lake must be spiritual beasts. Fish are also beasts, and these are spiritual fish. But spiritual fish can be caught by mortal fishing nets? Moreover, every net is a sure catch. How is this possible? Thinking of this incredible scene, Zuyun did not hesitate and flew towards one of the fishing boats. He wanted to get closer to see. Are these people mortals? Are these fish spiritual fish? Are these nets magic tools? Pipazhou is not too small, but with Zuyun's speed, it was just a blink of an eye. But just as he flew away from the sky above Pipajo, a pressure suddenly came out of nowhere and pressed all over him. Zuyun was horrified to find that his body was like carrying a huge mountain on his back, and he couldn't float in the air at all. In his fear, Zuyun fell straight down and fell into Lake Pipa. Splash! The water splashed, and the cold lake water stuck to Zuyun's body. He believed that he had really fallen into the lake. This lake is weird. As soon as this thought came up, Zuyun had no time to take care of it, because there seemed to be many invisible tentacles in the water, trying to drag him into the water. He was extremely surprised and used the water escape technique without hesitation. However, at this moment, the water escape technique failed. What's more surprising is that he actually lost contact with the chaos seed in his body. In other words, at this time, Zuyun was unable to use any chaotic power at all. He was no different from immortal. And in the water, he did not sense the spiritual power in the water. What should I do? Although Zuyun was slightly versed in water, he could only do the doggy paddle. Without the support of spiritual power, he could only paddle hard with his body's strength. But the pulling force in the water still took his body and slowly sank into the lake. At this time, the boatman had already discovered that Zuyun had fallen into the water. Several boats that were close to him stopped fishing. Some boatmen did not even have time to collect their fishing nets. They ran to the stern of the boat and rowed the boat towards the place where Zuyun fell into the water. When Zuyun was about to sink into the water, a big net covered his head. When his body was dragged onto a boat by the fishing net, Zuyun realized that he was saved. But was he saved by Immortal? I am in the Jindan stage. Not only did I drown, but I was also saved by Immortal? Little Immortal Master, you must be new here, right? At this time, an old and kind voice sounded in his ears. Zuyun looked up and still had no spiritual power on his body. The one who spoke was a mortal old man over 60 years old. Thank you for saving me. You are right. I just came here and saw everyone fishing, so I wanted to fly over to take a look. But I never thought that not only this lake is weird, but also there are weird things above this lake. Zuyun smiled bitterly, and his old face couldn't help but blush. Ha ha ha, the old man laughed heartily. He was not afraid or awed because Zuyun was a monk. Instead, he smoothed his grey beard, squatted in front of Zuyun, and untied the fishing net and said, "This lake, we mortals only dare to come here when the sun comes up, and you immortal masters can only take action at night. Why is this happening?" Zuyun was curious and thought to himself, no wonder I can't fly on the lake, but the Wenqinshao led a group of Danja stages straight into Huaytan Valley. I didn't expect that there would be such a truth in it. I don't know about this old man. We have been fishing here for generations. After we catch the fish, we go to the island to sell them. Immortals will come to buy them. But it is said that there is a supreme magic weapon in the lake. So, there are different opinions as to what it is, but we don't know, and we don't want to know. As he spoke, the old man had skillfully untied the fishing net. When the other mortals saw that the old man had rescued Zuyun, they just said hello to the old man and dispersed. Some people's fishing nets are still thrown into the lake. But the strange thing is that these fishing nets will not sink into the lake. He witnessed several monks using boat oars to retrieve fish nets from the lake. It seems that the strange thing about this lake is that it has two sides, day and night. Only mortals and things can move forward during the day. Only the monk's magic weapon is unaffected at night. He secretly remembered it in his heart, and then heard the old man say, "Little fairy, are you going back to the island or leaving the island later? If you go back to the island, wait until the old man catches the fish and send you to the island. If you leave the island, the old man will sell out the fish, will send you out again." Zuyun was not in a hurry and said with a smile, "My dear, there is nothing urgent. Why don't we just take a ride on this boat, but I have to put in more effort. Ha ha ha, little immortal master, you're so polite. You call yourself a brat? Old man, I'm afraid of losing my life. The old man laughed heartily, and the implication was that a monk's age could not be determined by his appearance. For example, Zuyun just wanted to fly above the lake, which showed his level. Although the old man is immortal, he was born and raised by the lake. He has lived for more than 60 years, and he still knows something about the world of immortality. For example, those who fly out of thin air are at least in the elixir formation stage. The normal lifespan during the elixir formation period is well over 100 years old. Zuyun naturally understood the meaning, he smiled and did not explain any more. It's not necessary or important. I just want to pretend that I don't exist. He got up and walked into the cabin. Staying on the deck would interfere with the old man's fishing, and he could also see what was unusual about the fish in the cabin. The boat is not big, so it is a bit crowded for two people standing on the boat. The same goes for the cabin. Under the awning, the cabin was filled with water. The fish caught by the old man were swimming happily in the water. Zuyun was unable to use spiritual power at this time, nor could he sense spiritual power. However, his eyesight will not be affected. This is indeed a spiritual fish. But why was it fished out so easily? Could it be that it was also the influence of the lake during the day? He thought to himself, and couldn't help but think of what the old man said again. There is a magic weapon at the bottom of the lake. He touched his chin. Since monks can only move at night, how about we go down and take a look tonight and find out what's going on? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzwan Xianxia. Chapter 599. Zuyun has been thinking about the feasibility of this matter. But just falling into the water, it was like experiencing a water ghost, almost being dragged down, and it was inevitable that I was still a little worried. He really didn't dare to go to a completely unfamiliar place. Although the old man rocking the boat said that Lake Pipa was completely two lakes during the day and night, Zuyun still retained his subjective thoughts. It's not that he doesn't trust the old man. In fact, the old man is just immortal, maybe his knowledge is insufficient. In front of me, those spirit fish seemed not to know what their fate would be next, swimming leisurely in the water. Even if the space is small, they are not affected at all. Fish are spiritual fish. I think this water still contains spiritual power, otherwise they would definitely feel uneasy. So, no matter day or night, it may not be Lake Baiwa that is affected. Zuyun thought to himself that spiritual beasts are more spiritual than ordinary animals, otherwise they would not be called spiritual. But none of these spirit fish felt any discomfort, which meant that the problem was not with the lake. It must be related to that magic weapon. After Zuyun confirmed the matter, the ship had already docked again. Little immortal master, we have arrived. At this time, the old man smiled and poked his head into the cabin and said. Zuyun stood up and then jumped to the shore. Suddenly, he felt the existence of chaos power again. He turned around and said with a smile, "Thank you so much, husband." After thinking for a moment, he took out a handful of spiritual stones from the ring and gave it to the old man. Who would have thought that the old man was so frightened that he waved his hands and refused, "Little immortal master, please don't do this, it's just a little effort." "Old man, if it weren't for you, I might have drowned today. If word got out, it would be a big joke. This little spiritual stone is not much, so it will affect your fishing losses." Zuyun also had some concerns in his heart, fearing that giving too much would affect the old man's life. Just like back then, he left a lot of gold and silver to Zurong, and later Sun Qiniang also gave some. As a result, Zhu Fen never suffered hardship after he was born, and he was pampered, thus developing that kind of temperament and eventually embarked on the path of magic. I just didn't expect that such a few spiritual stones would be rejected by the old man. Little immortal master, there is really no need. I am an old man living alone, and a spiritual stone can last for a year. Besides, I am old, and no one knows how long I can survive. The old man looked at Zuyun and said seriously, think about it, old man, if I die and these spiritual stones are not spent, I will not feel at ease even if I die. Zuyun was dumbfounded. He didn't expect the old man to think so wildly. Moreover, it seems that there is some truth. Yes, the person dies and the money is not spent. So why do ordinary people work so hard to make money in this life? Zuyun shook his head, finally put away the spirit stone, and chose to bow to the old man to thank him. Old man, I will never forget your life-saving grace. Then, see you later. After saying that, he strode away. My thoughts are actually vaguely understood. He has read many books, and he has read almost all of Sun Tzuan, who is 3,000 books. There are many reasons why people die for money and birds die for food. This is no problem. People make money in order to live a better life. Put it in the world of immortality. When monks go for spiritual stones, don't they also do it for better cultivation? Spirit stones can not only absorb the spirit energy in them and refine them for your own use, but they have also been used as currency in circulation. Judging from his current state, the spiritual stone was of little use in cultivation, but he needed the spiritual stone even more. After saying goodbye to the old man, Zuyun walked aimlessly. There were still more than 2 months in the secret realm of the Book of Heaven, so he instinctively explored the road to Pipa Prefecture. At this time, he stepped on the road and walked towards the foot of the mountain. He could see that there was no road here, but with so many people walking, they suddenly found a way. Pipa Prefecture was not that big, so Zuyun was not in a hurry. It took him less than half an hour to walk to a market at the foot of the mountain. The reason why it is a market is because in this market, mortals and monks are mixed. Most of the ordinary people are dressed as fishermen, presumably selling spiritual fish. As for the monks, you can actually see some chi refining stage and foundation building stage. There were even real people in the alchemy stage chatting softly with mortals, and pointing at the fish basket next to them from time to time. It looks like they are still bargaining. Zuyun was extremely surprised when he saw it, which completely overturned his impression of Pipa realm. During the elixir formation period, bargaining with mortals? This is unimaginable. Little fairy, do you want to buy some fish? Little immortal master, this fish of mine was just caught from Lake Baipa. Little fairy, come and have a look at my house. They only sell ordinary carp. I caught a big black fish today. Zuyun stopped when he entered the market, and several mortals immediately gathered around him. He was calling immortal master, but his tone of voice was as if he was communicating with ordinary people. Zuyun came here casually to have a look and learn about the scene outside Huayden Valley, and did not want to buy fish at all. Seeing the enthusiasm of these mortals, I thought that they also wanted to eat, so there was no need for me to dampen their interest. The most important thing is, doesn't the huge lake in his pasture also contain spiritual power? It's not a bad idea to buy some fish and keep them there. Okay, let me take a look, don't squeeze in. Zuyun smiled and agreed, and the fishermen cheered in unison. You said you caught a big black fish. Seeing that the surroundings were quiet and no longer noisy, Zuyun looked at one of them. Little immortal master, of course. The fisherman was only over 30 years old, in his prime, and his shabby clothes were very fitting, setting off his strong body. Little immortal master, do you know why he is called Brother He? It's because he has been fishing in Lake Pipa since he was a child, which is different from us casting nets. Another person on the side chimed in. That's right, Brother Hay's fishing skills are really good, and the key is that he can catch fish without earthworms, which is really amazing. Little Immortal Master, there is such a saying in our Peepa village, Brother Hay fishes, and those who are willing to take the bait will be caught. Zuyun found it interesting. He didn't know how to fish. In the past, there was a stream not far from the bottom of Xianxia mountain. Sometimes villagers went fishing in their spare time. He also went to see it with Daegu and Ergu. But they were young at that time and could not sit still for long. If they made a sound, they would be scolded by the adults who were fishing, fearing that they would scare away the fish. Okay, let's go to your place first. Zuyun said to Hij with a smile. Hij was overjoyed and pointed to a stall not far away and said, Little Immortal Master, the black fish in that basket are the black fish I caught. I was lucky today and caught two. Take a good look. Zuyun walked forward and felt two weak breaths coming from the fish basket without releasing his spiritual consciousness. He smiled and said, How much? He just bought it to keep it for fun, as long as it can live. Although the breath was weak, it didn't mean that the black fish was dying, but that this kind of spiritual fish was just getting started and was still too weak. One spiritual stone for each fish, just give me two. No problem. Zuyun took out two spiritual stones and handed them over. Brother Xiaohe held the fish basket in his hand, handed it to Zuyun with one hand, and took the spiritual stones with the other hand and stuffed them into his arms. Thank you, Brother Xiaohe. This black fish can be used to make. Ha ha ha, Zuyun laughed, then waved his hand and said, I didn't buy this black fish to eat. Ah. Brother Hay touched the back of his head with embarrassment, and couldn't say anything else. Xiaohe, go back quickly. You sold it so early today. Go back and hug your wife early. That's right. If your wife sees you go back early, she will be so happy. Yes, go back and take care of your wife. Everyone teased him, and Xiaohe's old face turned red. He thanked Zuyun and ran away. Looking at such a harmonious scene, Zuyun actually felt a sense of loss in his heart. When he first entered the immortal path, his fantasy was the same, he could communicate freely with mortals without any scruples. But since the Spirit Sword sect, the cold and ruthless human nature has crushed all his fantasies. In the end, he could only cut off his worldly ties and no longer ask about Zurong's affairs. Little Immortal Master, it's my turn. I caught a red carp today. Little Immortal Master, this is an ordinary carp, but it's big, weighing 5 pounds. Little Immortal Master, I don't know if you will accept the white stripes, it smells so good when fried. Zuyun was absent-minded and accepted all the orders. After collecting all the fish from these people, he already had a few fish baskets in his hands. The fish baskets could not hold water, but these were spiritual fish after all, so it was not a problem for them to survive for an hour or so out of water. After leaving the market, Zuyun took off into the air and flew to the mountain pass of Huayden Valley. After looking at the fish, Zuyun summoned the 3 dogs from the immortal mansion. Master, how did you get so many fish? Sango smelled a fishy smell and looked at Zuyun's hand, asking curiously. Aren't there other creatures in the lake? Bring some in to raise them. After saying that, he hung all the fish baskets on Sango's neck, and then sent him back without giving him a chance to speak. In the ranch, a group of monsters looked at Sango, who went out empty-handed and returned with a full load, and they couldn't help but be stunned. Jinjiao sniffed and said curiously, Dog, why did the master call you out to find fish? But before Sango could complain, his face suddenly changed. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzwan Xianxia. Chapter 600. Why, your face is so ugly. Old Ma was the first to notice Jinjiao's expression, and asked curiously. You don't understand. Jinjiao shook his head, and then asked Sango with a serious face, What did the master call you out for? Sango didn't understand, and said bluntly, I don't know either. He said there are no creatures in this lake, so he bought some fish to play with. As he said, he poured all the fish in the fish basket into the water one by one. The moment they entered the water, all the fish swam away, and seemed to like this lake in the ranch very much. I don't know what the master thinks. Jinjiao sighed and returned to his usual position, closed his eyes and began to practice again. Old Jin, is this fish strange? Old Ma followed and whispered in his ear. It's one of the fish, not all of them. I don't know if the master did it on purpose or it was an accident. It's better for us not to ask. Don't keep me in suspense. What do you know? Tell me. The more vague Jinjiao was, the more impatient old Ma was. Although this ranch is nice, it is boring after all. For a demon king like them, who no longer has to worry about his lifespan, he will not worry about cultivation at all. Those who understand will understand, and those who don't understand don't need to know. Anyway, it's best if you don't know about this matter. It won't do you any good if you know it. I can only say this, and don't ask the master. It seems that he said a lot, but in fact there is no useful information at all. Old Ma was so angry that he glared at him and said, Riddler. Humph. The golden dragon snorted coldly and ignored him. Zuyun returned to the valley again, but there was still no one. It was obvious that Xianxia had not returned after going to the earth vein fire with Feng Qingyang. This made him feel a little relieved. After all, the previous fight was not small. No one was seen at this time, which meant that they didn't know what happened here. Looking around, his eyes suddenly locked on the house where Feng Qingyang went before, and he couldn't help feeling a little strange. Feng Qingyang, who had been calm, or pretending to be crazy and stupid to show that he was a pervert, rushed into the house as soon as he entered the valley, and shouted at his father. But after entering the house, there was nothing else except the portrait. Something must have happened, otherwise how could he be like this? Zuyun thought to himself, just in time for the valley to be empty, go and take a look. Thinking of this, he stood up and walked into the house again to take a closer look. There was still no movement, and Zuyun's eyes finally fell on the portrait. The person in the portrait was lifelike, and was somewhat similar to Feng Qingyang. Especially the messy hair, which was exactly the same as Feng Qingyang before half of it was cut off. Zuyun laughed secretly. After all, he was a cultivator, how could he be so unkempt? After staring at it for a while, Zuyun did not find anything unusual. When he was about to retract his gaze, the eyes of the person in the portrait suddenly projected a ray of light, rushing straight into Zuyun's eyes. Not good. A burning sensation came from his eyes. At that moment, Zuyun almost thought he was going blind. He quickly stretched out his hand to block the light, but the light was not blocked at all. Then, an ethereal and vicissitudes voice sounded in his ears. Little guy, did you get my life sword? Life, sword. Zuyun was shocked and realized that the pain in his eyes disappeared at some point, or it didn't exist at all. Did you mortgage the sword to the spiritual equipment pavilion? Zuyun blurted out. Little guy, you are wrong. It's not mortgaged, but put there waiting for the destined person to come. Secondly, it can be exchanged for some spirit stones for fun. Isn't it killing two birds with one stone? After hearing the first half of the sentence, Zuyun still thought that Feng Qinjiang's father was another hidden master, but the second half of the sentence, the image that just appeared in his mind collapsed, making him speechless. It seems that what he said makes sense. Senior, are you saying that you deliberately put the sword in the spirit weapon pavilion? Zuyun came to Huayton Valley. The main purpose was to find the secret of the broken sword fragments. Now that he met him, he asked immediately. Of course, but I haven't spent all the spirit stones yet, and you broke the sword. I was seriously injured and couldn't get out of the painting. Zuyun was stunned. If the life magic weapon is broken, then the owner is injured. But what does it mean to be trapped in this painting? Little guy, don't you know? This painting of mine is a treasure passed down from my ancestors. Seeing Zuyun stunned, Feng Qinjiang's father couldn't help but feel proud again, and said, I see that you have a lot of spirit stones, how about I sell this painting to you? The tone of the words suddenly changed, and Zuyun felt that he couldn't keep up with his thinking, and his mind was a little empty. Senior, how do you know I have a lot of spirit stones? Zuyun sorted out his thoughts and picked a more important question than the broken sword. He was clearly trapped in the painting, but he knew that he had a lot of spirit stones. This was too mysterious. There was only one possibility: he could let his spiritual consciousness penetrate the painting and find out that he had used thousands of spirit stones to set up a self-destruct array in the valley. Then, the previous fight between him and Wen Chengxiao and a group of Jindan stage people must have been known? Suddenly, Zuyun's heart tightened. If so, not only the fire dragon staff was known, but even the chaos sword was discovered. As expected, Zuyun was horrified by what he said next. Little guy, you killed a lot of people in my Huaydan Valley. Because of old man Feng, I can't go out and see you in action. Zuyun felt a little amused when he heard that he called himself a limelight old man. But then, old man Feng said again, if I weren't afraid of being trapped in the painting by my son's joke, I would have come out to see you. You kid, not only took out the treasure left by my grandfather's grandfather, but also it seriously hurt me. Tell you little guy, now that my son is not here, you can't even think of settling this matter without 50,000 spirit stones. Zuyun was speechless. This old man Feng never left the spirit stone. Compared with the old man who fished, it was really ironic. He didn't want the old man's spiritual stone when he gave it to him. Old man Feng was trapped in the painting, but he still wanted to blackmail him. Senior Feng, does it seem a little inappropriate for you to ask me for a spiritual stone? First of all, your natal magic sword has been mortgaged to the spiritual weapon pavilion. I bought it seriously. No matter where you go to explain it, you will know. Secondly, if you can't get out of the painting, why should I give you the spirit stone? Is it possible that you can still climb out and hit me? Zuyun said with a smile. Old man Feng's words were meaningless, but they made Zuyun know something. He didn't know the function of the fragments. But what did he mean by the destined person he mentioned earlier? Ha ha ha, little guy, in the Peeper realm, I, old man Feng, am always the only one who asks for spiritual stones from others, but no one dares not to give me spiritual stones. Old man Feng laughed and said, this shows that our sword refining sect dominates Huaydan Valley and no one dares to offend us. Why is this? Zuyun was disdainful and said, why no one dares to offend? If that were true, how could Yuanying have entered Huaydan Valley before? Senior Feng, I have read a lot, you can't lie to me. What did I lie to you about? Old man Feng was not angry at all, and said, that's because these people in Beiwa City are ignorant and don't know how powerful our sword refining sect is. In the Peeper realm, all the sword-wielding Yuanying stages were made by our sword refining section magic sword. And 100 years ago, there were several big men who went to the spirit world and even spent all their wealth to ask me to refine spirit swords for them. Hearing this, Zuyun was amazed in his heart. If this is true, it is enough to show that the sword refining ability of the sword refining sect is really amazing. But when I thought about it carefully, I broke into a cold sweat again. Little guy, do you know why I can refine so many good swords? Old man Feng's next words made Zuyun's guess closer to the truth. But he didn't dare to say that he knew. Senior, please make it clear. If you really can make a good sword out of that treasure, I will give you 50,000 spiritual stones for every penny. Zuyun said immediately. You know what's going on. When old man Feng heard that Zuyun was willing to give the spirit stones, he couldn't help but said with great joy, "Throw me 50,000 spirit stones first." Throw. Zuyun was stunned. "Yeah, throw it on my head." As he spoke, Zuyun's eyes suddenly regained sight. He looked up and found that the old man Feng in the scroll actually raised his hand and pointed at his forehead. His eyes widened, his face full of disbelief. He thought that the portrait was undoubtedly a magic weapon, and he was trapped in the portrait. But who would have thought that this kind of trap would directly turn him into the figure in the painting? "Hurry up, little guy, why are you regretting it? Isn't it? It's only 50,000 spirit stones. If you can't get it out, don't even think about knowing the secret of that treasure." Old man Feng couldn't help but become anxious when he saw Zuyun not moving. This spiritual stone is a necessity for him to break out of the predicament. "Okay, senior, it's ready." Zuyun withdrew his thoughts and focused his gaze, but he couldn't help but use the shattering void spiritual eye technique. Unexpectedly, the face of old man Feng in the painting changed drastically and he exclaimed,